My presentation reports a letter sent to Mark Twain by Hannah Riddell. She was a British female missionary who founded a private labor hospital in Kumamoto, Japan. Today, I focus on the background of this letter and the result it brought out. This letter is one of those I found in 2022 during my research stay at Mark Twain Papers. When I casually searched for the keyword Japan, this letter came up as one of 120 letters Mark Twain exchanged in December 1907, according to the database. It was mailed from New York on December 21st. The text of the letter registered in the database is as follows. Here. From Mrs. Twitcher of Hartford, I have received an introduction to you, and she tells me that Mr. Twitcher has written to you about me. May I be permitted to do myself the pleasure of calling upon you at some convenient time to present this introduction. In the last 17 years, I have been living in Japan, and among my most intimate, valued friendship there is one with the household of Professor Mitsukuri, from whom I have heard of this unbounded admiration of yourself. Through him, I have made acquaintance of Mr. and Mrs. Twitcher, and I seemed to come nearer still to you, who have been to me. As to so many countless others, the friend of a lifetime, there must be so many always desiring the privilege of meeting you that I cannot be surprised if you decline to accord it to me. But if you will, it will be a great delight to take back to Japan with me. In this letter, Riddell does not mention specific matter such as her work at the labor hospital. On the other hand, she gently emphasizes her relationships with the people who introduced her, such as Mitsukuri and the Twitchers. Today, I will report on my research regarding this letter focuses on three questions. Okay. First, what kind of person was Riddell? Second, what was the relationship with Riddell and Twitchers? Did Twain meet Riddell, and what happened to their relationship? Here. Hannah Riddell came to Japan in 1891 as an Anglican missionary from England and was assigned to Kumamoto, just a place a huge earthquake happened. When she saw labor patients gathering at the Honmyōji Temple on the outside of Kumamoto City, she decided to help them in need. At first, she offered outpatient medical care, but in 1895, she established the Kaisyun Hospital of Resurrection of Hope, and began caring for the patient in the private hospital setting. In Japan, her hospital was a pioneer, founded more than 10 years before public care institutions. Even after the first leprosy prevention law was enacted in 1907, and 5 public institutions were established across the country, Riddell continued her work at her private hospital in seeking her ideal care for patients. The reason why Riddell was able to pursue her ideal care was that she established a network founded by private donation independent of public funds. The donation initially came from England and Japan. However, when the 1907 leprosy prevention law was introduced, the idea spread in Japan that leprosy care should be a public welfare project and a responsibility of the government. It is very likely that this notion caused Riddell to worry about a decrease in domestic donations. Therefore, in 1907, Riddell planned a lecture tour to North America and set off to call for new donations. As a result, the support network expanded from England and Japan to Canada and the United States. This international support provided the hospital with a solid foundation, enabling it to run for about half a century until it was shut down in 1941 with the opening of World War II. Riddell visited North America 3 times, in 1907, 1921, and 27, to develop and maintain her donation network. According to research by Trevor Murphy, who examined donor records at the Riddell Memorial Museum, a proportion of overseas donation increased dramatically after her trip. This table shows that her lecture tour in North America more than doubled the share of overseas donations, and that North America support made up a large portion of a hospital income. However, the details of her lecture activities in North America remained completely unknown until my research. I have gathered and analyzed the information on Riddell's trips to North America using online newspaper databases such as newspaper.com and newspaper archive and so on. By organizing the content of these collected newspaper articles, I made some findings. While she mainly used Anglican church networks in Canada, she relied on personal connection in the United States. The letter from Riddell to Twain is an example of her fundraising activities in the United States. The network between Riddell and Twain included a servant of Kakichi Mitsukuri himself and Joseph Twitcher. Furthermore, a journalist named Edward House served as a connection between Mitsukuri, Twain, and Twitcher. So, let me explain the relationship between these figures. Riddell started her 1907 North American lecture tour at Twitcher's church in Hartford. Indeed, her relationship between Twitcher is particularly important, serving as her initial connection to North America. The person who connected the two words, Kakichi Mitsukuri. Mitsukuri was a zoologist who went to the United States from 1873 to 1879, got a degree at Yale University, and later served as a professor at University of Tokyo. He is known as a father of the Japanese zoology. Mitsukuri was born in 1858 in family of the lord of the Tsuyama domination. The Tsuyama domination was interested in Western learning even during Japanese period of closed country policy. In Meiji period, after the opening of the country, Mitsukuri entered a Western-style national school, Daigaku Nanko, in 1872. There, he learned English and American affairs from Edward House, a correspondent of the New York Tribune, who was teaching at the school. In 1873, when House temporarily returned to the United States, he took several Japanese students with him, including Mitsukuri. He entrusted 2 of them to Mark Twain in Hartford. Twain provided temporary accommodation for Mitsukuri and the other student, but since Twain was about to leave for Europe, he asked Twitcher to take care of them. 1871 was a time when Twitcher Twitcher's church was the headquarters of the Chinese Education Mission, CEM. This project was created by Yang Wing, a Yale graduate and church member, in cooperation with the Chinese government to bring young Chinese boys to the United States for education. The Japanese students, including Mitsukuri, attended Hartford High School. In Twitcher's journals, some records can be found of Japanese students visiting him on New Year's Day to offer New Year's greeting. After graduating from Yale, Mitsukuri returned to Japan. When he visited the United States again in 1904, he stopped by Hartford to give a lecture at Twitcher's church. When Mitsukuri passed away in 1909, the Hartford Courant reported his death, writing that a friend of Hartford had died. While these facts are already known, the exact connection between Mitsukuri and Riddell was not clearly understood. Based on guesses from research at the Riddell's Memorial Museum and interview with its director, the following possibility can be considered. The connection between Mitsukuri and Riddell may have started through a servant who worked at Mitsukuri's house. This servant introduced Mitsukuri to Riddell, and Mitsukuri family and Riddell became close enough to enjoy plum blossom viewing party together in 1910. The folding farm in the photograph is said to have been signed on that occasion. Riddell was philanthropist, but she was also an ambitious person who always aimed to enter high society in Japan. On business trip to Tokyo, she stayed at the best luxury imperial hotel, and during summer vacation, she owned a villa in Karuizawa, where Japanese prominent figures in politics and business gathered. She worked hard to build networks with Japanese leaders and foreign visitors. The reason was that managing her hospital needs reliable connection, as she believed that strong connection would lead to even more better ones. For Riddell, Mitsukuri was someone she expected to help expand her network not only in Japan, but also toward American networks. Prior to her trip to the United States in 1907, Riddell wrote a letter to Shigenobu Okuma, a former prime minister and foreign minister of Japan, whom she already knew, asking him to introduce her to his connections in America. However, Okuma's personal network seems to have been of little help. When Riddell explained her hospital and her work to Mitsukuri, he likely recommended Twitcher as the most suitable person. After arriving in the United States, Riddell went to Hartford to visit Twitcher, and his church became the first venue of her North American lecture circuit. From this, we can understand that Riddell considered the Mitsukuri-Twitcher connection to be her most reliable and promising network. An article in Hartford Courant dated June 19, 1907 announced that Riddell would give a lecture at Twitcher's church with a note that she had a recommendation from Kakichi Mitsukuri. The lecture seemed to have ended successfully. Mark Twain's name might come up during informal conversation after the lecture. When looking into the letter from Twitcher to Twain mentioned in Riddell's letter, it was sent on December 11, 1907. This is a database date, and the text is here. According to the postmark, Twitcher informed Twain about Riddell on December 11, 1907, 6 months after their meeting in May. It can be assumed that this timing was arranged because Twitcher had already planned, because Riddell had already planned a lecture tour mainly in Canada for September and October after her summer vacation, following her departure from Hartford, and waited until her initial schedule was finished. After completing her lectures in Canada, Riddell stayed in Boston from November 16 to 22, and then wrote a letter to Twain from New York. Twitcher wrote to Twain on December 11, and 10 days later, on December 21st, Riddell sent her a letter. Let's check the information in this letter. First, regarding the sender's address, which indicate where Riddell was staying. The building at 432 Lafayette Street, New York City, still exists today. This is a historic building called Coronado Row, completed in 1833, which had a reputation for luxury when constructed. Famous figures such as Julia Tyler Morgan, Warren Delano, John Jacob Astor Ford, Cornelius Vanderbilt, and Washington Irving all once lived in this historic building. Although part of the building was demolished at the end of the 19th century, it still maintained a luxury interior when Riddell visited in 1907. While it is unclear how Riddell managed to rent a room there, she used such a historic and prestigious building in New York as her return address. This offers her impressive networking abilities. Another interesting note on this letter is handwriting pencil, noting a note here. Tall woman interested in hospital for lepers in Japan. Yes. The detail interested in hospital for lepers in Japan is not written in Riddell's letter, but it is mentioned in Twitcher's letter. However, the phrase tall woman is mysterious, as it is not in Twitcher's letter either. Riddell was indeed tall and well-built. This brings up the question, did Mark Twain actually meet Riddell? To confirm whether they met, the key is identifying who wrote this pencil note. 3 candidates stand out. One is Mark Twain himself. If it is his handwriting, the possibility that Riddell and Twain may meet is high. Another is the female secretary, Isabella Ryan. If it is her handwriting, the possibility is low, because her detailed diary contains no record of meeting anyone named Riddell between mid-December and January. A third possibility is Albert Payne. If it is his writing, a meeting might still be possible. In 2022, during my stay at Mark Twain Papers, I asked Professor Hurst to identify whose handwriting was on this letter. As a result, the handwriting was confirmed to be Isabella Ryan's because of this authentication, and since no record appears in Ryan's diary, the possibility that Riddell and Twain met is extremely low. In the donation records at the Riddell Memorial Museum, I also confirmed that Twain's name was not listed. Then, where did the information, tall woman, come from? After the letter reached Twain, he traveled to Bermuda with Ryan and Twitcher, starting in January in 1908. It is likely that during this trip, Twain heard about tall woman from Twitcher, and after returning home, Ryan wrote note in pencil, maybe. Although Mark Twain's name is not on the hospital's donor list, it contains the names of as many as 1,200 North American donors, thanks to small yet helpful donations, mostly ranging between $1 and $10 from ordinary North American citizens. Riddell's hospital was able to care for 30,000 outpatients and 3,000 inpatients over half a century. This is a story from a century ago, a heartwarming bridge of compassion built across the Pacific. Thank you for listening.